Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. Welcome to The Lounge. Today, my guest is Scott Moore, and we're diving into how we can leave the life that we've been programmed into for the life that we choose. So, the quote leading us off today is "Be bold enough to choose your own path and strong enough to follow it." Now, Scott is no stranger to doing that. He went into the Air Force Academy, got a master's degree in chemistry from the University of Illinois, and served as a pilot and officer in the United States Air Force before coming into business aviation and ultimately pivoting to set up his own coaching business to help lead people through self-leadership and bridging the gap between seemingly diametrically opposed concepts like science and spirituality. Scott, it is a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here in the lounge.
Yes, I feel very lucky. We've had a lot of time together in the last short while. We were together at leadership. I took your personal development, professional development course there. And then we had a coaching session yesterday. And now today we're going to have a great conversation.
Of course. Why not?
Why not? Exactly. Or as you said to me yesterday, the "of course" is the better phrase. We always want the positive.
Of course we are.
Of course we are. So when we look at, this concept of the life we're programmed into versus choosing, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that, because obviously we can also choose our own programming. And then we have to make sure we don't get stuck into those rigid ways of thinking also. So how have you found your journey with unprogramming, unlearning the things that no longer fit and choosing what you're going to put in place?
Well, I think this is quite a human condition, right? So I've been a coach now since 2016 and coached hundreds and hundreds of people. And for those aviation folks, I have 2,750 hours of coaching.
That's
so that everybody knows how that adds up when it translates to flight hours. But what I've noticed is that people have this transition from the life that they're programmed into. And when I say programmed into, it's your family, your culture, what your major was in college, whether you went to college, your first job, those sorts of things that happen. And as we go on in life, then many people get to this point and say, I'd like to make a change to something different. Yeah. Now, for many people, traditionally, it's been in retirement. People say, I'm 65, I'm going to retire, I'll get the gold watch, and now I'm going to go move to Florida and play golf and tennis and do these things, and I'm going to live this wonderful life. Now, then there's the second category is the people in their 40s and 50s that have what they call a midlife crisis. Oh my God, I need the sports car, the new girlfriend, I'm living a bad life and I need to go live a different life. And more these days, it's people in their 20s and 30s that go through college, they get trained, they enter that first career and they go, man, this isn't what I signed up for. I don't want to do this the rest of my life. And they're looking for some transition. And so, whatever age we are, it seems like there's this point where we can shift from this life that we were programmed into to the life that you choose. For me, my background, you alluded to it a little bit. I went to the Air Force Academy. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. My dad worked for Jeep Corporation and he was an executive. We had no money for me to go to college, but I did really well in high school. So I wanted a good education. And I looked around and I thought, I'll apply to the academies, the military academies. And at the time, the economy was not very good. And one of the factors was guaranteed job, because when you graduate from the Air Force, you're a lieutenant in the Air Force, guaranteed. And so I thought that's a really good deal. And they pay me to go to school instead of me having to pay, which was also a
wonderful.
Yeah. So I went there and never intending to be a pilot. Unlike 95% of all the pilots out there, had no desire to be a pilot ever in my life. Never entered my mind. But, I was at the Air Force Academy. I was pilot qualified. I thought, might as well go fly. They have airplanes. Okay. And I became a pilot. And my first choice airplane was a C-141, which was the airlifter at the time. Crew of 6 to 8 people, 200 people in the back, flying from country to country. It was all about people, always for me. And the flying part was just the means for me to get to the new place. and that
Okay.
was the fun part. So after doing that, did a career in the military, did my corporate aviation stint, did about 11 years. And I realized that I'd kind of reached the top in aviation. I was the aviation department manager, never going to be any higher. I could go to a different company, but that was it. And
Right.
my company had done some leadership stuff. And I thought I could probably do that. That sounds interesting. So I took a coach course, and I had to come up with my life purpose. And my life purpose is this, Sarah. I use the energy my life purpose is to use the energy from now I don't even remember my life purpose.
Maybe it's about to pivot. Maybe it's about to evolve.
My life purpose is using the energy to ignite hope, from igniting hope in others, to transport people from the unknown to the connected, raising our vibration levels and allowing us each to choose a better version of ourselves. And by doing that, I saw that on the board, and I said, I've been in the wrong job for 30 years. Because my life purpose has very little to do with aviation. So I made the change. That was the initiating point, where I'm doing something that isn't aligned with my life purpose. And now I want to do something different.
Yeah.
So within 6 months, I made the decision to leave aviation and form my own company and do coaching, leadership classes, and speaking engagements. And that way I get to live my life purpose every day.
I love that. And you're still connected to the world that you were in. You
Yes.
do have a presence in aviation, and obviously you can help a lot of people because you're right that this timeline of kind of questioning what are we going to do next has become earlier and earlier. And I think that it's going to continue to be something that the new narrative will have to be, are you checking in regularly enough? Why should you wait until you retire? Why should you wait until you're X age? Right? I mean, the thought of what I wanted to do when I was 18 is not what I am doing right now.
Right.
And that thing that I would have thought I wanted to do, I absolutely would not want to do. Right. So regularly checking in. I love this whole come up with a life purpose, because of course we learn about this at work, right? What's the mission of our company? What's the purpose? What do we exist for? How do we serve? But when you can turn that lens back on yourself, it allows you to make really intentional choices about the things you do rather than just falling into the slipstream of activity.
And you brought up with a good word, choice. People say, oh, I'm stuck in this job. It's sucking the soul out of me. It's just miserable. And I say, well, do they come with machine guns every day and take you there?
Right. Hold you there.
Yeah. They don't. You're choosing to go there, to this place that you really don't like. You can choose something different. Tomorrow can be different than today. And we have that capability of making that choice. And people say, well, I'm stuck. I have kids to feed. I have a mortgage to pay. Yes, there will be consequences if you choose to do something different. But it's possible. What are you willing to do to give up and to make that happen, make that dream happen that you want?
Right. And we get stuck in, I'm doing the daily stoic spring cleaning challenge right now. And yesterday they talked about the velvet rut that we get to. It's comfortable. It's kind of soft and cushy there. And we get into this routine and it feels good, but it also feels stagnant, right? And it's getting a little bit heavy, right? Velvet's a very heavy material. And I just thought that was such a great analogy, because ultimately, when we make the choice for change, or we make no choice at all, we're still making a choice. We're choosing to do nothing. We're choosing to stay there. And so it is always a choice. But as you said, you have to be willing to do the things that are required of you to gain the new skill set, to learn how to be in a new environment, to connect with a different audience, whatever that thing might be, and be okay with that uncertainty. So many times we're just afraid of not knowing what's on the other side, so we never begin.
Exactly right. And I'm not saying everybody should go out and quit their jobs immediately and go be a yoga instructor or something, but there are pathways that can happen, that is still while you're employed and while you're being funded, you can make that transition. It can be a planned transition. It took 6 months for me to go from I'm going to leave aviation to I am now starting my job, and I had a very good timetable to get things done in that time frame. And my coach training started a year before that, so it was all very much aligned with still keeping my family, paying the bills, keep my family fed, all that. But until you set that goal and set that intention that I want to start doing this other thing, then nothing can happen. I love the velvet rut. You're just stuck, and stuck is a choice.
Yes.
It's a choice.
So what I'm hearing is that it's really helpful to have some preparation because again, we also don't know if we're going to like something or not until we do it. And if
Yes.
you don't have that certainty, it may not be the smartest decision to jump in with 2 feet and no regard for consequences. So as you were speaking, I got this image in my mind of like having a baby, right? When you decide, hey, we want to have a baby as a family, you know, there's a conversation that's had, and then it's okay. Let's try for one, or let's just say you got pregnant right away. You still have 9 months of gestation before the baby arrives, so you have time to prepare, to get your mindset ready, to change your house and put the things in the wall so they can't stick their finger in the plug, and all of the things that you got to do. And you're getting yourself prepped for the next phase. And it's the same thing when you explore. Maybe yoga teacher training is a wonderful personal experience for you. It may not be what you want to do for money, and that's fine.
Right.
But
But you
allow
can try
yourself.
that out. You can try that out on weekends or after
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
and see how that life is.
And
And
maybe
we're just
it's just
using that as
something you want part-time. Maybe it's something you want to develop as the for fun thing. And in the future, it may turn into something that you use in your practice, or maybe the philosophy that you're going to learn there, right? Like some of the things that you would have learned in all of your different experiences, you bring those philosophies in now into how you coach and how you show up in your leadership trainings.
And the other possibility that people are doing these days is the side gig, right? So
Mhm.
basically, let's say airline pilots. It's not the most exciting job in the world, after 10, 15,
Bus
20
driver of the
years.
sky.
Bus driver in the sky, but locked be in a little cabinet behind a door, never to talk to anybody else. But many of those friends of mine who are airline pilots, their
Yeah.
real passion is the thing they do when they're not flying. And the
Right.
flying gives them the funds to be able to go do this thing that they really love.
Yes.
Right. And so there's nothing wrong with that. It's called work for a reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the joy of your life. If you find that other thing, then maybe it's okay to do this work that's tolerable. It's okay. I liked flying. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It wasn't bad, but I enjoy this other thing better. This coaching, this classes and things like that. So to start, maybe you do the sideline gig and see how that works. And then maybe it's successful and you can expand it and then get rid of the day job at some point. If it doesn't get successful, you can kind of filter it off and learn from it and maybe try something else. So there's all sorts of possibilities here to move towards that life that you choose.
Absolutely. And I love that you highlighted this because so often we hear this, oh, if you follow your passions, you'll never work a day in your life. Calling BS on that right now. I love what I do. I still have to work and I still have to have discipline and put in effort
Yes.
to get the skill sets to a level where I'm focused on excellence, where I'm going to be masterful, having the beginner's mindset and still doing the things that are simple and basic because I know that's the foundation. They're not always fun, right? Like nobody wants to do the little accessory work in the gym because it's boring, it's not sexy. But guess what? That's what makes sure that you don't have injury. That's what allows you to have flexibility and mobility, not just big muscles that you can't
Mhm.
you can't even move
Right.
and it's not functional, right? And sometimes the choice of I'm not in love with this thing, but it's something that I can tolerate and accept. It meets some of my values and it allows me the pathway to follow what I do love. Unless that thing is just sucking your soul completely dry and you have no energy for anything else, then you probably need to look at some other options. But if you're in something where you do have leftover energy and you can then redirect that into something that you are passionate about, wonderful. You're making an intentional choice to give yourself that avenue.
And there's nothing wrong with doing the 20, 30 years in a career and then doing the playing golf or playing, there's nothing wrong with that. That for some people that works really well. They raise their children, they have the family life, and then now they go travel the world or they go do those things. So there's many ways you can structure this, this transition, but most of us aren't even aware there's a transition that can be made.
Yes, I love that you brought that up. Most people are not aware that one, it could be made, or that even they might be interested in a transition, right? Because we can get kind of blinders and target locked on something, and we're just focused on the outcome rather than the experience. So what have you found that's been really helpful for you and your clients as we talk about all these different pivots between the different things you've done? How do you start to tease out, and how do you check in with yourself to see, hey, is this still fitting? Or, oh, maybe that's interesting. Maybe I'll explore that a little bit. Do you have any signals
Well,
or
I think
suggestions?
my suggestion when I work with a client, one of the important things we do, we set goals for the coaching session in each area of life. What do you want to achieve? But for most clients, I do work with them to create a life purpose statement, because that way they can kind of see what is it important, how is it important. And the way we do this life purpose statement is, tell me about times in your life when you were happy and fulfilled.
Hmm.
And those types of experiences are the building blocks that let us see what our passions are, when we're in the flow, when life is easy, when things are fun. And now you can craft that into a life purpose statement, so that it allows you to say, okay, here's my life purpose statement. This is what I love. These are my values. We determine values. This new opportunity is coming up. How well does it align? How well is
Hmm.
the current life I'm living aligned with these values
Yeah.
and with this life purpose, right? And so you can when I saw my life purpose, we got it all done. It was like a ton of bricks. I've been in the wrong job for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I was a good pilot, but I had to devote a lot of energy to being a good pilot, because I'm not a
Hmm.
numbers guy. I don't remember all the, limitations and all. I'd always have to work on that. That isn't my natural thing. And so to be a pilot, I just took a lot of stress, actually. And so when I
Yeah.
stopped, life got easier,
Yeah.
because I'm much more comfortable doing this one-on-one than I ever was being in an airplane where I'm
I
flying
love
from point A to point B. Yeah.
I love that. That reminds me of something that came up yesterday when we were speaking. I'm just popping it up there. Live simply and according to your nature, right? When we are being something that we're not, for whatever reason, right? Then that takes a lot of energy, and
Mhm.
you're exhausted. It's tiring. And when you strip that away and you take away the shoulds and this, kind of external focus, and you align yourselves with what you are good at, that is when you get into that flow state, right? If you put me in
Mhm.
front of an Excel
Mhm.
spreadsheet, oh my God, I will either run away or or like, what's over there?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I will find someone else to do it for me. I will delegate that, or I just won't do it. I'll hide from it, right? So it's really important to acknowledge those things about yourself and be okay with that. You don't have to be a genius at everything, and it is also okay to focus your areas on what does feel good, because guess what, you're going to do more of it. Your brain's mechanism will literally give you more dopamine to do the things where it's easy, the path of least resistance. So put the people in the right seat on the right bus, and that's how you
Mhm.
can have a more harmonious team. But when you're looking at yourself, it's really that self-reflection, right? And I'm sure you get clients who have more of an ideal picture of themselves than the reality. So how do you help them kind of bridge that gap?
Well, I don't know that there is a gap, because think about this, Sarah. Everything in our brain is the result of electrical signal processed through our senses, right? So
Yeah.
we have this little vision of ourselves in our heads, of who we are, of what we are. And one thing we've been talking a lot about, making that transition from programming to who you choose to be in the doing phase, in what we do for a living. But there's also the being phase. who do we choose to be versus who we were programmed to be?
Yeah.
And I think that there's that gap, right? Because the way I was raised as as a son, I had one father to use as an example, and I was trained that fathers yell at sons to get things done, right? That's the paradigm. So that's the way I was programmed. And I remember the day where I decided to be different with my three boys. My oldest son was 12, 13. We were going to football practice. And I said, just get in the back. He goes, Dad, can I ride in front? No, just get in the back. Blah, 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 blah. And he threw a fit. And so I started yelling at him, why? You're not 2 years old. Blah, 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 blah. And we get in the car and we're driving to football practice. And I look at myself kind of in the mirror and said, is this the dad I want to be? What I just said all this horrible things to my son, not inspirational, not motivational, not loving. And so we talked about it a little bit. And at that point, I made a transition. I said, I am not going to be the father of children anymore. I'm going to be the father of an adult. If my kids were 30, how would I, as the father, talk to them? And I said, I'm going to start doing it now when they were at the time 13, 11, and 9. I'm going to start doing that. Instead of saying, hey, you're late, get your stuff together. Oh my God, let's get out the door. I'll say, it looks like you're a little behind schedule. What's going to happen when we show up to your football practice late? What are you going to do about that? How could you prepare? And starting to do these things to allow them to be in their own power. But I changed from how I was, all about stress, my responsibility to get these kids to do these things, to, hey, I'm your facilitator now. I'm your coach. I'm the one that's going to help you do these things, but you got to do the work. And it changed. That was one of the things early on that changed how I am. That's in the beautiful. Past, I would go to MBAA conventions and things like that. And I'd have a conversation with someone. And, there's a class I wanted to see at 2:00. Well, I got to go 2:00. I got to go to this class. Now, if I'm in a conversation, that's far more important than whatever class I may think I might enjoy or not.
Right.
And I also would look around. I'm talking with someone who's more interesting, who's more, who do I really want to talk to instead of this person? And I've sort of gotten rid of that tendency as well. I've gotten much more focused on being present. And so, but that's again, who do you choose to be? Not what do you want to do, but how do you want, people, we're so programmed by our families. Yes. And generational things happen, generational traumas, generational stories. Yes. We'll never get ahead. Life's out to, we're always the victims of things. Well, turn that around, because the universe that's in your head is playing old cassette tapes. They're all dusty and worn, but they're cassette tapes that were put there when we were young. And take out that cassette tape, put a bright new shiny one that says the things you want it to say. And guess what? You can reprogram your brain through NLP and neural programming to actually believe the new narrative.
Yes. And also by the choices you talked about, right? In that moment when you chose to be different, the action actually is what leads to the new belief. Because when you do that new action, you feel something different. You have a different experience. And now all of a sudden you're being that thing already. And so I remember a coach had me take all of my values and use them as verbs. What are they like in action? How do you know when it's there? How do you know that these things are present, right? And that really helped me shift the focus, because a lot of people think that, I need to change my beliefs and then I can be different. No, it's the other way around. You do the thing differently and then you can shift your beliefs. Be, do, have, not the other way around.
Be, do, have. I like that. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Most of us just have the wrong order of operations. And as a pilot, on your checklist, there's a certain process you have to follow, right? And if you did something out of order or you skipped a step, that's where now the incident or accident rate percentage becomes a lot higher.
Right.
And you can't do the last thing before you do the first thing because it just makes no sense, right? Or you skip all the previous steps. Yet that's what a lot of us try to do when we're approaching this work. But when we can actually be the thing that then we're doing the right actions, then we have the result that we want.
No, you're exactly right. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's really a good. It's the same way that if you want to change things, doing small things every day,
Yes.
building habit patterns,
Atomic habits, the
changes
tiny
things,
little
right?
things.
Yeah, atomic habits. It's discipline, right? It's the discipline of making those choices every day and say, this is how I'm going to live my day today, right? These are the things I'm going to eat. This is the exercise that I want to do. These are the exercises I'm going to do. My yoga practice, my meditation, whatever those things are. I always hear, yeah, I want to learn to meditate. Yeah, I want to do more yoga.
Yeah. Just take out the want part and
Do
just
it.
do.
Just go do
Right?
yoga.
Like Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try.
Exactly. But that's where success comes, right? I was telling you earlier, I just published today, I just published my 5th book.
Congrats.
And
That's awesome.
it's like, for county collecting. And it's County Collecting South Carolina got published today. And I look at this, I've written in the last year, I've published 5 books, and the 6th one's going to get published tomorrow. How did I do that? Every day I would work on it a little bit. I would take a bite from the elephant. And when you take enough bites of the elephant, amazing things happen. And I'm living proof of that. I started this in 2009, just started working on this, little each day over COVID, a little bit more because I couldn't really do much else. And all of a sudden now it's come to fruition. And this is how you make changes in your life of who you want to be. It's small things. It's not big things. It's small things. Changing your life on what you do might be a bigger thing. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to start a new business. But changing who you are, it is replacing language. It's replacing habits. It's small details. It's interpersonal interactions, handling things a little differently with intention, right? So you have to have that intention instead of being just
Autopilot.
Because otherwise you're on autopilot and the same old cassette tapes, the dusty ones, are going to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think James Clear said that every action you take is a vote for the identity that you're choosing.
I like
right?
that.
And so when you choose these small little steps and you do them consistently and you tie it back to why it's important, so that what does it give you? How does this help you? Why is it important? That is what allows you to make these changes. But as a pilot, 1 degree difference in your flight heading is a huge exponential change over time. Okay, maybe 5 minutes, no big difference, but 5 hours, you won't be landing.
Well, back in the day before GPS, you might miss the Hawaiian Islands if you were a degree or 2 off, right? It made a difference.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if we called up NASA and asked them, hey, if your rocket was off by 1 degree, would it matter? They would absolutely say yes.
100%,
right?
That's why these crashed rockets happen. Something was off a degree or 2, right? So yeah, it really does make a difference. But we have the power to do this.
Yes.
We have the power. Now, sometimes sometimes those tapes, those cassettes are embedded in there too hard and they're very painful to remove. That's when I think using a therapist, using a psychologist, there's ways to heal those things, but you still have the power to change that. So I'm not saying it's an easy thing for many people that live through traumatic childhoods, different events happened. There's a need to kind of heal those wounds and get yourself right. And then you can start to advance towards the future in the way that you choose.
Yes. It's really about making sure that you have that, you're starting from wholeness, you're starting from a strong foundation. And I mean, we're already whole. We just feel like there is a hole. We got to do a whole spelling thing here. Right. Imagine there's a perfect circle. That's what we are. We are already whole, but we feel as if there's this gap. And then we put a Band-Aid on it. And then, that doesn't last very long. And so it's really about understanding, I've worked with therapists. I've done hypnotherapy for an eating disorder, worked with a therapist after my stepfather's suicide. I worked with a psychologist to help me manage stress and anxiety when I was, 30 and had everything I wanted, but was living a very stressful life, not taking care of my nervous system, thinking I always had to do more. And guess what? When you feel like you're not good enough, you will make yourself busy. And busyness is a lazy choice because it means that you're not looking at the things that are important and you're just allowing yourself to be swept up by your environment. And so when we realize that we have that power, that can be a little bit scary, right? And this is where we kind of bridge this science and philosophy part here and get logic on board, because we are creators of our own universe, and you can choose to look at things half full, half empty, or as one of my mentors likes to tell me, and we even have a chat group for it, says the glass is always refillable. So that's a better perspective than either of the other two.
Right. Well, part of that reprogramming that you're talking about is what language do we use? Like,
Absolutely.
I always used to make jokes. People tell jokes about myself in a negative way, right? So like, oh, you're really funny. Yeah, funny looking and all of this stuff.
Right.
And now I don't do that, right? And how's your day going? Oh, it's pretty good. My day is amazing.
Yes.
Because if it's not amazing, I'll do something to make it amazing. And even if it may not have gone the way I wanted, and maybe I'm a little ticked off at somebody, that's amazing, because now I can learn from that and do things differently.
Yes.
And so it's all about that viewpoint. But so many of us get locked into victimhood, and, oh, there's nothing I can do, and yet they're shining examples. Go to a bookstore. There are shining examples of look on Amazon of, this is my story of how I overcame X, Y, and Z in my life. Yeah. Right? And people do it all the time. You can be that person. You can write that book.
Yeah. And one of the things that you had in your PDP course that I loved, because the through line of, my speech is just breathe. When you take a long, deep breath, as you let us know, you are removing the amygdala hijack. You're stopping it. And that gives you enough space to be able to then choose a different course of action. Yeah. And so this is why, people kind of laugh, but we really do not breathe correctly all day long, and we don't, or we breathe too much, right? We're hyperventilating ourselves. We're not cleaning all the gunk out. And I love that now Western science is finally catching up to some universal truths that have been out there for thousands of years that the logic, linear type thinkers didn't want to accept because it wasn't scientific. But now there are a lot of studies to prove exactly that. And we're now getting the logic on board. So people are trying these new things. They're letting themselves play again and experimenting for themselves. Ultimately, everything you choose to listen to, you're listening to this podcast right now. Guess what? You're choosing to get some programming from Sarah the Pivoter and whoever her guest is. You are choosing to listen. Whether you take it on board is up to you or not, right? But ultimately choose the things that align with where you want to go rather than the things that are keeping you where you currently are.
Yeah. I had a speaker at the leadership conference talk about how you want to slow down to actually move faster.
Yes, exactly.
I'm promoting Sarah here. But that's exactly true, and there are more and more leadership books state of the art that says mindfulness is one of the most important things you can do to become a better leader, which is to slow down, to be aware, have emotional intelligence, do some meditation. It is to open up space, because when you're meditating, it's not that you're not thinking nothing. You're thinking one thing. So you're focusing that brain on your breath, on a candle, on whatever mantra, whatever you want to do. And it tames that monkey mind that causes us so much grief. That, this, that, oh, I have this to do, that to do. And you can bring that focus to one thing and get the one thing done. And I don't know if it's just me, but do you ever notice, like, when you have a list, there's always the one thing that you don't want to do. You know, you'll
Right.
do
You do like
everything
everything
else on the
else and
list.
kind of skip
Yeah.
it.
And you skip it, and it's just like, I gotta do it. Oh, crap. And when you do it, for me, it's the easiest thing that takes far less time than I ever thought it would.
Oh, yeah. I think
And it's the monkey brain is telling us all these excuses.
the story, we get wrapped up in the story. I saw a
Yes.
meme and it was like, just wanted to announce that 30-second activity I avoided for 3 years is finally done.
But it's so true. It's so
It
true.
is so
You
true.
know, and our brains, we're our own worst enemies at times by just the stories we tell ourselves, you know, which
Yes.
are not true.
Most of them are not true at all because we've completely fabricated what we think is going to happen. And now look, in business aviation in particular, or any operational role, that is literally your job. Your job is to anticipate the 1% chance of failure and come up with solutions so that when it happens, you're ready to go. The owner's not pissed off. You can still take off. You can still operate, right? Whatever that environment is in. But that is not how we need to be living our day-to-day lives. I mean, imagine that as you were like walking out the door, every single possible threat you were trying to solve. Like, what if somebody's waiting to attack me as soon as I open my front door? What if my engine like turns off and then I have to call the thing? Or what if my dog gets sick as soon as I leave the house and I have to call the vet? I mean, you wouldn't do anything.
But people
right?
live that. People live those kinds of lives. You know, they
do.
choose to be in that space. And a healthier way is it'll either happen or it won't. It's a 50-50. Everything is a 50-50.
And sometimes
then we
it comes
use
down
our
to
brains.
emotional regulation.
Yeah, but if it happens, you'll make the best decision at the time to handle it. Right? And I heard a quote, fear is just a big fat liar. One of my clients told me that. And I thought,
like that.
That's
Theory is a
brilliant.
big fat liar.
Fear is a big fat liar because anything you're afraid of isn't true. It'll never happen the way you're afraid of it being happen.
Yeah.
And because you're going to be more cautious, you're going to be, but it's a big fat liar. All the things that we're going to, I'm going to quit, I lose my job. And then and I always ask people, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'll lose my job. Okay. Well, what's the worst thing that'll happen there? Well, I might not be able to pay my bills. Okay. What's the worst thing that happen there? Well, actually,
how many famous people have been bankrupt? How many really well-respected business people have lost everything and had to start over? And they do.
Most
and
of
at the end of the day, yes, because they were willing to take those risks and they were, and did they have stress? Of course, right? It's changing your relationship to the thing. Because everything in our world is a relationship. You and I have a relationship, right? The relationship I have with drinking water is a relationship. The way I view something is a relationship. And so it's how you relate to the things in your world, whether that's a person, a place, or a thing, or an idea. When you start to shift that and how you relate to those things, that's when you have that big ripple effect and you can approach things differently.
Yeah. And, people go from a fear mindset to a hope mindset, right? And people go from a lack mindset to a abundance mindset. There's these mindset shifts. If you think of them as spectrums, many people are on one side, you can move to the other side, or at least in the middle. And so it's a way to kind of to train our brains to think about different. And when we train our brains to think differently, our reality changes. Because the only reality is in our skull. And if we can change that, then our reality changes. Because my reality isn't yours, Sarah, or anybody else out there. Mine's only mine. And I can change mine. I can rewrite the script and act differently. And then amazing things happen. It's just really bizarre how that happens in the world.
Yeah. The way I was just reading this, I was reading A Course in Miracles this morning, and they were talking about, that the way you feel is the way you will view the world, right? And so when you are taking care of yourself, you're eating nourishing food, you're getting enough rest, you're meeting the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're connected. Humans are herd creatures, whether we want to admit it or not. America has this obsession with hyper individualism. I was there too. I thought I needed nobody. And if I did it all myself, I had more control, and you couldn't hurt me and you couldn't take it away from me. And it's a very, very tiring and lonely existence.
Well, and then add these things.
Oh God, yes. I do a digital detox every week now. I started in January, 24 hours, once a week.
Nice.
It's like a digital Sabbath. It is so refreshing. My nervous system is so happy. And it is amazing. A lot of people are like, oh, how does journaling help me? Or how do these kind of philosophical things, reflection, how does meditation, does it actually serve? And like, do I feel better? I wear this Whoop band and I track. There's all these things you can track. And now I've been wearing it for a couple months. And when I journal or when I meditate, I have a between 5 to 10% improvement in my recovery score every time.
There you go. Scientific proof.
And I love data.
Right there.
This is me. Maybe for you, it's not as much, right? But it shows you these markers, and then you get to actually do a little science experiment on yourself, right? See if you can just breathe for 3 minutes and do nothing else and just focus on the breath. Try for 1 minute. 60 seconds is a long time. Maybe not to everyone you ask, but if you've ever done HIIT 45 seconds on some of those exercises, you're like, is it over? When do we stop? So again, it's how you're looking at it, how you're approaching it. And what you said, I actually used this analogy with my partner the other day, Scott. You were talking about the things we have to do in life and how we can meet them. And there's a baseline, right? You gave the example of cleaning a toilet.
Right.
And how you may not love cleaning the toilet. That's not really an activity most people love. But can you meet it with at least this baseline level of acceptance so that you can get to the next thing, right? Rather than like, oh my God, I got to clean this toilet and it's so dirty and my life is horrible because I have to clean up this. Guess what? It's probably your own shit that you got to clean up. And when you can accept that that's part of the process, right? We just approach things so differently. And I use that example with my partner, and it like flipped a switch for him. And he was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So thank you for that example. And if you want to expand on that for our listeners, please feel free.
Yeah. So there's, the line is acceptance and then enjoyment. So I really love cleaning toilets. I like having a clean bathroom. It's amazing. And then the top level is enthusiasm. I love cleaning toilets so much. I'm going to open my own toilet cleaning business. I'll come clean your toilet. It's the thing I love to do. And if it's not above that line, if it's hate and bitterness and just get rid of it. Either never clean your toilet and just deal with it, or hire someone to do it, or delegate and have your partner do it, whatever, your kids do it, whatever you want to do, but don't ruin your life with those things. Or you can bring it to acceptance like you talked about. And it is as simple as that. It's just as simple as saying, I can complain and make myself miserable. Can I just at least get it to acceptance? Yeah. And if you can get it there, then it's fine. And you talk about relationships. Can I get that annoying habit that drives me nuts? Can I get it to acceptance at least? Maybe even to enjoyment at some point in your life, that annoying trait of your partner. Or is it going to be below the line and make you miserable? It's up to you. It aligns with a lot of different parts of our life. That's from Eckhart Tolle, that hierarchy of doing, enlightened doing.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. No, it was such a great example, and it really drove the point home. I saw a lot of nodding heads. I saw a lot of like light bulbs turn on at that moment. Because sometimes when we talk about these kind of philosophical things, even with Stoicism, right? A lot of people are familiar with Stoicism now. Ryan Holiday's really brought it back. And these esoteric concepts where we hear like the phrase or the word or even like abundance mindset, people are like roll their eyes and like, oh God, right? And they don't feel the substance. They don't really understand it. What does it look like practically? And when we can start to bridge that gap and show where the logic intersects with it, where the science supports it, that's really where, I mean, Andrew Huberman Labs, he talks about, everyone's like, oh, gratitude practice. What's that gonna? There is scientific evidence to prove that having a gratitude practice, and more expressly, when you receive gratitude from somebody else, the boost that it has on your dopamine and your feel-good hormones.
Yeah.
And so if nothing else, go and message someone today, call them, send them an email, a LinkedIn thing, comment on their Instagram, and tell them something that you love about them, that you're grateful for, why they're in your life. Because that is paying it forward. That is connection. It's going to help your bond. And when you receive that back someday, right, what you put out, you get back threefold. So give yourself that gift. Go express gratitude to someone.
Well, and you're exactly right, because the gratitude is focusing on the things you have. And where the abundance, the secret and the law of attraction and all these things, you're focusing on the things you don't have. And
what happens when you chase things?
What happens when you chase things? They run away, right? And so you make this thing, I'll be happy then. I'll be happy when I get this. I'll be happy. That means you're unhappy. Right? If you're only going to be fulfilled in this later time, that means that now you're miserable, right? So instead, I'm happy now because of these things in my life, the air that I breathe. I say every day, I'm grateful for the air that I breathe, the water that I drink, and the food that I eat.
Yeah.
Because it keeps me alive. Why not be grateful for it? I'm grateful for that air. Because the thing that struck me is air and water are free. Well, unless you put it in a plastic bottle. But air and water are free. That's basically what we need to be alive. So 2 out of the 3 things are absolutely free. We need some food that we have to pay for. So how much do you really need? Be grateful for those things you have. I'm grateful for my body. And one thing I've realized is I am not my body. I am the thing that lives in my body. And I am so grateful for my body. Even though it gets older, it has health issues. I don't. I'm in here. Scott, the true Scott, never ages a day. I'm the same as I've always been. Timeless and eternal. But this body, is aging, has some miles on it, and I need to take care of it. And I'm grateful for my body.
Yeah.
But I don't get sick. My body gets sick.
Right.
My body gets older. I don't get older.
Language
and I
is
think where
so
people
important.
mess up is they identify. Yeah, they identify that they listen to their body that's telling them that my knees hurt, my hip hurts, and they say, I'm getting older. I can't do that.
Right.
And well, if you believe that, that'll be true.
I just saw a video the other day of this 96-year-old woman, and she looks like she's in her 50s, and she was talking about this exact thing. It's the mindset. And she was actually being interviewed because she had this house for 70 years. She bought it when she was in her 20s. But at that time, women couldn't own property. And so, they were like, well, how did you get this house? And she said, oh, well, the realtor I was with told the people buying the house that my husband was buying it for me and putting it in my name. And that's how you get around that. And I was like, man, this woman is a superhero.
And that's these people in their 90s doing marathons and people out, we keep, you and I talked a little bit about the Matrix yesterday, but the thing is, we control our own attitudes, our own visions. And if you can keep that a little bit different than the norm, if you can open up that gap that I am not my ego, one. So I'm mad about something, or I'm angry, or I feel hurt. If you can observe that, then you're not that thing that is hurt.
Right.
That's one. And then the second thing is, if you can observe the fact that you aren't your body, you inhabit your body, you are the soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, then that opens up a gap. And so opening these gaps allows for a lot of processing, a lot of space.
Absolutely. And when you also release this attachment of identity to, even things like I am angry versus I am feeling anger,
Yes.
right? You are experiencing an emotion, which is energy in motion. It's not going to be there forever. It's like the weather, right? But when you over identify with the thing itself, whether that's something you do, your body, a skill set you have, again, it's all story, right? And so when you change the language, your experience changes, and it's very powerful. Even saying things instead of I want to be, and changing that to I am, right? Not I want to be playful. No, I am playful. I am playful, right?
On a 1 to
And
10
now,
scale, you might be a 3 on the playfulness, but you can be a 10 later.
Absolutely. When it's that time, again, it's all a spectrum. And then again, by saying this, you're already putting yourself into the state of being. And so you'll intentionally make choices that align with that, right? That's why doing the things you say you'll do is so important, because you're building that self-trust with yourself. That's why making your bed first thing in the morning is a practice that serves many, many people very well, because you've already accomplished something for the day. You did the thing you said you were going to do. Not hitting snooze, right? If you hit snooze, you are breaking the agreement you set with yourself the night before.
Yeah.
Now it's a slippery slope. Oh, well, I don't have to follow this rule either. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow, right? And then when does tomorrow arrive? Never.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Scott, when we talk about, you brought up this, like the pleasure aspect. And I know we have in here, like, we're going to pull back the veil on living a life of Tantra, because this word, for some people, they're like, oh my God. I'm sure there's people listening like, when are they going to get to that point of the conversation?
is that advertised?
It is advertised.
Oh,
I put that in there. You put that in as a topic of something we could talk about.
Well, people have been waiting 52 minutes for this.
I mean, again, what are you willing to do to get the thing that you want, right? So what does this mean? It's because so many people have the wrong thing in their mind, and they think it is only reserved for certain types of activities. But I'd love to hear, right? Most people think Tantra and sex. And you know what? That is a big part. Sexual health is a big part of being human. But what does it really mean to live a life of Tantra? What does that mean to you?
And so I've been studying Tantra since 2018. And for me, I think of myself as sort of a bridge, because I was the science guy. I've got a master's degree in chemistry. I was a pilot. I was type A. And then I'm going to study Tantra, and I'm a coach, and I do yoga practice every day, and pranayama and all this. So I think about, I try to think of myself as a bridge to be in both of those worlds. But what's interesting about Tantra is the science of energy. That's the definition. So if we think about it, it's just another model for how life works, how energy flows through our bodies, how energy flows in the world. And if we can influence our energy through these tactics of yoga, meditation, pranayama, all of these sort of spiritual things, then we're able to focus our energy and interact with the world around us. Now, I have a master's degree in chemistry, like I said, and it's not rocket science, but I've taught rocket science. Close. But the thing is, it's the same thing. If you think of our bodies, there's electrical currents going through circuits that are transmitting all of our nerves, all of our processes, all of our thoughts. Well, when you move an electron through a wire, it creates a magnetic field. So if you want to think about it, it's our bodies have magnetic fields that are because of the electricity that flows through them. So I look at it as science, and these magnetic fields interact with the magnetic fields of every other person, of other beings, of the walls and the floor and the sunshine and the earth. all of these things are in balance, and we can't perceive this. We don't understand this. So with Tantra and the concept of chakras, which many of you may have heard, there's 7 centers of your body that are chakras. They're focused areas that are aligned with different parts of your being. And if you can influence and clear blockages in that energy, or infuse energy into those areas, the heart chakra, for example, then maybe you can experience giving and receiving love better, and be more compassionate, and doing and removing some of the ego out of your relationships and your decisions. So it's another lens that you can use to change the way you live your life. And the sex piece is only like 5% or less of Tantra as a whole, but it's about exchanging energy with another person through a sexual acts. And so that's where that comes in. But because you can exchange energy with the environment, with yourself, and that's a much more fruitful and beneficial practice.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that explanation for everyone, because this was something I learned too when I started to dive into more of the yogic practice and philosophy and things of that nature. And there's different resonances for the different chakras, right? Our heart operates at 528 megahertz. You can go to the Heart Math Institute and see all of the science and things that they have done. But our hearts are oscillators, right? So if you play that frequency in the background, if you're in a jagged state, if you're stressed, that's going to help soothe you and calm you down, right? There's a reason why vibration and sound affects us in a certain way. And of course, I mean, as I said in my speech, who doesn't love more and better engagement when you're physical with someone else and you have that connection, when you're actually intentional and present? Wow, it's mind-blowing. Imagine you brought that same intentionality and presence to all of your other interactions in life, right? And that's really what tantric philosophy is about, being present and using your energy in an intentional way. And so think about children, right? They wow, look at this flower, and they're like so excited, or the little baby animal, and they come and they just fully experience it. And that's what I really love about this philosophy. It's getting back to fully experiencing things rather than here's the box, here's this, Pleasantville experience I have to be in, otherwise it's not normal or okay. No, fully be in the experience and be aware of how your energy affects the other person, the other thing, the environment that you're in.
Well, part of my life purpose is raising the vibrational level. And I tell all my clients that, I tell all my classes that. And some people will ask me, what do you mean by that? And everything has a resonance. Like you said, everything has a frequency. So if we can move the frequency to this much, light always overcomes darkness. If you flip on the light, darkness goes away, right? So higher energies, things like prayer, like faith, like love, are much better than lower energy, like anger and abuse and all of these sorts of things, right? So we can see that there's different energetic levels, and the higher energetic levels always will counteract the negative. And so if you can raise the vibrational levels in an interaction by complimenting someone, or tell them what a great job they've done, or I see how you interact with folks here, it seems like you're really good at what you do. If you can raise then you've done a good thing that day.
Yeah,
because you don't know what that spark is that's going to then take off and allow them to feel more confident, more creative, etc. And so when I'm in coaching and I'm helping someone achieve a better version of themselves, because coaching is about here's where I am, here's where I want to be. So it's raising that vibration level. And so we can think of it that way. And then in Tantra, you can actually think about actual vibrational levels and raise them in yourself, but through yoga, through meditation, through these practices. And it pays off.
It does. It so does. And I remember when I first dove into this world, I was, I'm also like you, very type A, very logical, like show me the evidence, right? And I remember I was so stressed out. I was willing to try anything. And I lived in Asia. So I had acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, all these things. I went for a Reiki session. And I remember I felt like a new person. I was just like, I don't know what happened, but I feel great. And even my partner, who at the time, my ex-husband, not into any of this stuff at all, would be rolling his eyes at this conversation, probably to this day. I literally walked in the door, took 2 steps, and he's like, "What happened to you?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I don't know. You're just so calm." I was like, I don't know. I did this thing. I don't even know what they did. And he's like, "Well, whatever it is, keep doing it because this is great." And so even he could feel that difference just by me walking in the door. And I remember the only reason I even tried this session was because the guy doing it was a lawyer and was still doing executive leadership training. So I was like, right, it can't be this frou-frou hogwash stuff, whatever. If this person's doing it, right, someone that I respected and thought had a good intellectual mind. And then one day he looks at me and he's like, "Sarah, you come here quite a lot." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty stressed." He's like, "Why don't you take Reiki level 1 so you can do it for yourself?" And I was like, "I can do that?" Like, "Well, how do you think I became a practitioner?" Of course you can. And it was just like, whoa. So of course I did that. And I ended up, doing all 3 levels, getting the Reiki master, but
Oh, wow.
absolutely life-changing the way that you approach things. And it would absolutely fascinate you to know what the US military has done in terms of studies in this realm as well. And so
Yeah.
he did a great job of laying the foundational framework of logic and things that our programmed minds can accept, which then leaves the door open so that when you're ready, I can walk through it, right?
Yes.
If I can't shove you through the door, I can't, break it down for you. But if I just pop it open, put a light on, and you're like, "Oh, what's that? That's interesting," right? And that's what we're doing with today's podcast. We're just leaving the door ajar for you.
Well, you'll be called. My partner in coach training was a professional psychic, and here I am, an aviation department manager. And she
Right.
said, I went like, "Oh, that must be really good for you."
You're like,
when we met. But as part of my coach training, I had to do a little project on myself, and I did a mini mystery school, and I experimented with Reiki and past life regression, all these things to see if there was anything there. And my conclusion was they were all not nothing.
Yeah.
I expected some of them to be nothing, and they were all not nothing. And so that led me to explore and go further down the path. And, the world is much more wonderful than we can even imagine when you start to go down some of these paths. But you will be called and you'll seek out the right people and you'll go to the right places if that's for you. And if it's not, then you're just going to think that Sarah and I are a bunch of weirdos, and that's fine
And you
too.
know what? That's why I live in Austin, because we embrace the weirdness over here.
Well, Austin, yeah, those people in Austin,
I know. And it is when the student is ready, the master will appear, right? And sometimes it comes in very different forms than you might expect. But really any interaction that you have in life is a learning opportunity. When we can go into it with open eyes, open hearts, open minds, that's when we can go, huh, that's curious. I wonder about, and then finish your sentence, right? That curiosity allows for connection, it allows for learning. And you might go, that was interesting, not for me. Great. Now you've learned something about yourself, right? And now you can go explore something else and see what else might be interesting or curious. Alice in Wonderland, curiouser and curiouser. Just follow the thread.
I can tell you, Sarah, I was 56 years old before I was ever felt whole and complete in my life.
Mm.
And so it's never too late. And I'll tell you, since that day, it hasn't changed. And all my life, there was something missing until I was able to fill it myself, like you talked about earlier, being whole and complete. And that was through a lot of self-work, a lot of work on myself. What are those fears? What are those stories? What are those emotions that are holding me back? And so I encourage you that if you're interested in this stuff, you can reach out to me, reach out to Sarah. We can point you in the right direction. It's available to everyone, but some people will be called and some won't, and that's fine.
Yeah. And even when you do get the call, it's the typical hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, right? You might refuse it for a while. You might go, "No, I'm not sure." And when the time is right, you'll know, and you'll just continue to follow the breadcrumbs and you'll make it your own thing. So that's really cool. I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity at an NBAA event for Scott's PDP course, to sign up. It was really wonderful to take the course myself, be a beginner, and also just to witness other people having doors open and having the light bulb turn on with certain concepts. And it's a really great way, no matter how experienced you are or how experienced you think you are in leadership or these concepts, it's always great to get a different perspective. And ultimately, that's what we do here in the lounge, is we offer new perspectives.
And just to plug it, the 1-day course, Leading with a Vision, is going to be April 18th in Dallas. And also April 24th in Charlotte. You can reach out to me through my website. The one in Dallas, you reach out through MBAA. There is through an MBAA and the North Texas Business Aviation Association. And then in October, I've been selected to teach the 2-day class, which is Aviation Leadership, Prepare Yourself for Takeoff. And that one is the 2 days prior to base. I don't know exactly, nice. Towards the end of October. And that's the 2-day course. And you get everything in that one. That's a lot of fun.
Amazing. Yes, I highly recommend it. Please go and sign up. But before we wrap up, Scott, I do have a few questions that I always like to ask all my guests. Are you ready?
All right. Yes.
All right. I think I might have an idea, but what would you say is your superpower?
My superpower, I think, is presence. I can be fully present. I can contain, whether people are going through emotional turmoil or chaos or just even in a coaching conversation. I've gotten to the point where I fully believe that my superpower is presence.
Amazing. What a beautiful gift to offer other people as well. Who would you say your board of directors are? Who do they include?
So that's a tough one. You sent this to me and I had to think about it.
Yeah. I
would just have to say God is on my board, and all the staff, all the angels, whoever's working for them up there. I do ask for guidance quite regularly on almost everything I do. I get yes or a no kind of answer, a consecration kind of thing. I feel like I'm living my life in service to God, the universe, creator, whatever you want to call it. And so that is my board of directors. That's where I'm at these days.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And the third question, it's a big one. It's a self-reflection type of question. How do you best represent or serve humanity from the lens of alien life has landed on Earth and you are the first human that they meet? What do they learn about humanity from you?
That the light shines, that the light can shine. My job, my only job on this planet is to shine my light. And the right people will be attracted to by my light. Some may be repelled by my light. But we have this capability within us to let our lights fully shine in the service to raise the vibrational level, not only of other people, but of our society and of our planet.
I love that. I got an image of a lighthouse, right? And a lighthouse is in service to others, right? You don't go from the shore into the storm to go take people and bring them to shore. You shine that light so that they can find you and they can navigate there. And that's what we do here in the lounge. We help you navigate that turbulence and that storm.
Oh, I'm not spinning around in a circle. I'm like a lighthouse that goes all the way.
Yeah. No flat spins here. There's no twirling around, just constant brightness.
This is like a full spectrum 360 lighthouse.
I love it. Amazing. Scott, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more, if they want to get in touch?
morelifeleadership.com. MOORE lifeleadership.com. That's my website. There's contact information on there. If you're interested in maybe having a coaching session or just a conversation, you can schedule a 30-minute conversation on there for free. And it'll go right on the calendar and show my open times. It's got information on my books, which are a whole other topic that we're not going to talk about. But I travel the country and I collect county courthouses. and write books about them. So that's on there as well. They're available on Amazon. I will sign them if you ever find me. So that's a promise. And so that's how you find me.
Amazing. Yes, Scott is a pivoter
And
as well.
LinkedIn, Facebook, all those sorts of things too.
Yes, if you go More Life Leadership, you'll find him, Scott Moore. His name's been up on the screen, and connect with him and find out more. Well, Scott, thank you so much. This has been an absolute delight, an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and shining that light for all of us to feel and see.
Well, thanks for hosting me. And I really appreciate it. You're like this master doing all these visual effects. I'm so impressed. You do a good job. Thanks.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having me on.
You're so welcome. It's been a pleasure. We had a lot of live guests today. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, you can always post on the recording and we'll get back to you next week. Stay tuned for the next episode in the lounge from another business aviation guest, Tristan Punnett, and we'll get back to you live soon. Thank you so much for joining us.